All right, everyone. My name is Mitchell Hora. Thanks for joining us today for a TopSoil webinar and a live recording of the TopSoil podcast. Today, we're going to be talking a lot about humics, talking about nitrous oxide, talking about fertilizer management, and how you can utilize that to, number one, of course, drive your profitability and yield and just farm smarter. But also now by improving our fertility management, reducing our synthetic fertilizer input, we can also improve our carbon intensity score. So we're going to dig into that quite a bit here today. Just by means of intro, my name is Mitchell. As I said, I'm the founder and CEO of Continuum Ag. We're a software company based in Washington, Iowa, providing farmers with a digital roadmap for soil health success. We need to continue to focus on building soil health. We're going to talk today about carbon intensity. We're going to talk about some of these new markets and opportunities that are emerging, but soil health is still the tried and true. Markets might be a cherry on top. They are fun. I think there's a lot of opportunity for us as farmers to capitalize on these markets, but at the end of the day, soil health is what's going to continue to be there because markets are going to change. Regulation and policy is going to change. Tax credits are going to change. But the soil health principles are not. They're going to continue to remain the tried and true. We need to stay focused on that. So today I've got a co-host with me today. We're trying to rotate in different co-hosts and stuff here in association with Continuum Ag. So my co-host today is Dad, Brian Hora. He's been on the show before, but wanted him in because we're actually testing out some of the products from Huma that we're going to be talking about here a little bit today. So wanted to have Dad in on that. And also, he, of course, we're out harvesting right now. So stepped inside just for a little bit, but I'll head out to the farm and we're going to be cranking away at some more corn here this afternoon after this. But basically today, just kind of an open conversation with our friend here. Fred Nichols is my guest here today. Fred, we'll let you, talk about Huma here. But Huma was actually a gold level sponsor for our field day here this summer. But we wanted to have just another conversation to get Fred on, talking about the trial that we're doing here this year, but talking about how can farmers just approach making the right buying decisions and stuff, or just thinking about holistically managing our operations as we go into the next year here. So I'm not going to keep the slide up here, but what some of the things we do want to hit on here today, we'll get some of the background and stuff. Fred, I'll kick it over to you here in just a second, but why Huma, some of the rebrand and stuff too. I'm just interested in kind of an entrepreneurial talk with you here as well on what all is going on within Huma and the rebrand and the focus that you guys have within sustainability. We're going to talk about nitrogen a lot. Nitrogen and fertilizer management is a big component of carbon intensity, and then talking about data and decision making as we turn our sights to the 2024 growing season. So let's start there. So number one, Fred, let's turn it over to you. Thanks for spending the time with us here today. Fred and I have known each other for a number of years, actually, before the Huma piece. Fred was a mentor in the Ag Launch Accelerator program. Continuum Ag participated in that in early 2020. And Fred and I connected there and just been able to stay in touch. So when he made the switch over to Huma, he hit me up and we've been having some conversations since that point here once again. So Fred, maybe give us a little bit more of your background and then why Huma and why are you with them here today?
Yeah, Mitchell, thanks a lot for having me here, and certainly enjoyed working with you in the days of the Ag Accelerator launch. I will certainly tell everybody right now that Ag Launch is a great program to get startups going, and Mitchell is probably their most famous alumni right now. So he did a fantastic job.
Margaret likes to think so anyway. Margaret was fangirling when we first met because she was following me on Twitter, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, like, I follow you on Twitter. This is so great. And I was like, yeah, 2019, 2020. Um,
Oh no, it was
I
it was
suppose it just means I just have the biggest target on me, I think, Fred, that like we've got to make this go. Like if Continue Mag screws up, it's not going to be good because there's too many people that, yeah, are following along and are cheering for us.
You do have a way of drawing attention to yourself, Mitchell. I will say that. I think
Hopefully,
Brian
good
will probably
attention.
laughing when I say that, but yeah. So definitely, as I started off at your conference, Topsoil conference, the first words in my mouth were, with a name like Huma, what better place to be than Topsoil Summit, right?
Mhm.
And I think we got a pretty good reaction out of the crowd for that. But it's true, the inspiration for the name Huma is clearly humus, right, from the soil. And I like to tell people that our name is 3 months old, our company is 50 years old, and our products are millions of years in the making. Right. So some of you may know us from the name Biohumanetics. Some of you may know us from HumaGrow. We went to a rebrand June 1st. And the reason why is we had 6 different brands out there. And this day and age, if you're going to do any marketing at all, whether it's through Continuum Ag, whether it's Huma, whether it's anybody out there, you definitely have to have this tool called the internet, right? So when you take a look at search results and driving traffic and so forth, that was really a big driver of this. It also makes it very easy to support one brand as opposed to 6, right? And we were started 50 years ago, and just over attrition, right? You acquire a brand here or there, you have a new product launch, whatever. It's easy to get into that rut. And from an efficiency standpoint, it just makes sense. Huma is certainly a rallying cry for us. Everywhere I go, someone will see my shirt and they'll say, Huma, you got to be in soil health.
Mm.
So I think people instinctively kind of get where that's going. And that was really, the big driver of where we are.
So tell me a little bit more on your side personally and just kind of the story here, because I think it will be valuable for folks that are listening. Why did you change what you were doing before? You've always been in marketing and stuff, but why Huma? Like what made you say, yes, I want to go and jump in, this company? Like what was your thought process there, I guess, on making the jump that you did?
No, I appreciate you asking. So I'm a farm boy, right? Grew up in Galesburg, Illinois, so not too far from all of you in Iowa. Worked on the farm my entire life. Went and worked for Prairie Farmer Magazine. It's my first start. Worked in the ag marketing realm, and then went back and actually farmed on the family farm for about 12 years while I was still doing my ag marketing. And then about 8 years ago, got recruited to come down to work for a group here outside of Memphis, Tennessee.
Mhm.
And actually at that time, acquired this client called Biohumanetics and started working with them. And they said they want to do a rebrand. So I rode point on a lot of that and got to know them really well. And they felt, we need to kind of make the next move. We're a global company. We want to put a lot more emphasis into marketing, and they wanted to hire a chief marketing officer. And they said, we could go out and do a national search, or we could just bring in somebody that we already know. So we kind of did a little bit of a trial run, I guess. We never really said it that way, but that's essentially what it was.
Yeah.
And it was kind of a 3 or 4 month job interview, I guess, from both parties. But things just immediately clicked. The main thing I'll say about Huma is the culture. Their values align exactly with mine, right? So, they're very much about faith and family and farming. And those are the 3 things that drive me as well. So really, from a cultural standpoint, it was great. But then it's very exciting as far as where they're going, the product line, using the more the natural approach.
Mhm.
The first thing that came to my mind when I started working with them is we got to get involved in regen ag. We've got to reach out to people like Mitchell Hora. We got to reach out to people like Liz Haney. We got to start forming relationships with these kind of people, and that's what we're doing.
Yeah. Let's explain it a little bit deeper here. I think a lot of farmers are maybe aware of humics, are aware of, I kind of bucket together as humics, fulvics. There's these different complex carbon molecules. And we know that we're trying to build carbon in the soil and that plants need a lot of carbon and that organic matter is more than 50% carbon in a humus, more stable kind of form. But help us understand, like, what the heck is it actually like humic acid? Am I explaining that correctly? Like, what is the actual stuff here? Because I think a lot of farmers are hearing about this, but let's just have kind of the science lesson of like humus 101 or like humic acid 101.
So absolutely, we've
From the
got
marketing guy, from the
yeah,
marketing
from a
guy, right?
marketing guy,
Not
right?
not from the science guys.
Thank you for that. Yeah, absolutely. So, kind of the fun fact is when I said our products are millions of years in the making, I mean, what we're looking at is deposits that were made from plant material from prehistoric times. So we're talking dinosaurs, right? So that's kind of a fun fact. These are deposits that did not form and become coal. And so as a result, they're very rich, absolutely, in carbon. So it's made from plants. So it's a natural, biologicals. You hear a lot about biologicals. We don't put living organisms in the ground. We put decaying organisms in the ground, essentially. But that certainly stimulates microbial population. So I think a lot of people think of humic acid, and they immediately think of, well, if I've got bad soil, I put it on and it makes it good. Okay, simple terms. That's certainly true. But we have, uses far beyond that as far as, porosity of the soil, water retention, fertility of the soil. We actually operate two mines. One is a mine in New Mexico, and that is the standard dry humates that a lot of people are very familiar with. Then we also operate a mine in Idaho, and that's really how we got our start. So our founder, Dr. Jordan Smith, was contacted by a group of folks in Idaho over 50 years ago and said, we've got this substance here that we're not sure what it is, but the local farmers, they put it on their crops and it does really well. So he went and experimented and took a look at it and said, well, it's definitely a humate-based material, but it's unlike anything anyone had seen before. And this is not an underground mine. This is an above ground mine, right, on the surface. So there's certainly chemical properties that help bring this substance what it is. A basic way of understanding it is you take a look at the molecular rings and the size, and I'm not going to get too far into chemistry on anybody here, including myself, but you got your humic acid size, then you got your fulvic acid size. I think a lot of people hear fulvics as a tank mix partner with herbicides and other products because it's a good delivery mechanism. Well, our humate products, we call it microcarbon technology. This is from our above ground mine in Idaho. And this has a very, very small carbon ring. And what it does is it provides an ultra efficient vessel to carry products, whether that would be nutrients, whether it would be crop protection products, any product you could think of agriculture, it's an outstanding carrier. And really what it does is it limits the amount of volume of nutrient or herbicide or whatever else that you want to apply. In many cases, 15, 20, 25%. So now you can see where the sustainability story is going.
Yeah. And it's my understanding, so these like carbon, of course, is like the building block of life. And it is because it has 4 valence electrons. So it's such a good carrier and it works in all this because carbon has 4 valence electrons. It can bond with like 4 different things. Now, if you think back to like, junior high and high school science class and how how molecules bind to each other. So that's why, a lot of farmers, think of it as a carrier and stuff, but in the soil, it's binding to nutrients and stuff. It has a lot of pore space. It's food for the microbes and such here as well. And Dad, that's where I want to get you in on this. We're supposed to be kind of tag teaming this here a little bit, but maybe Dad, you share a little bit on this humic stuff. You've been playing around with a couple different things like this, but what have you seen from the conversation at large, though? High level conversation over the last couple of years coming from humics, fulvics, just carbon additives, and maybe your thought process on how you've been approaching them on the farm.
Well, really, what we're trying to do is seeing which ones kind of fit the situation. As you said, as Fred mentioned, what are we missing out there? What's the missing piece? And I don't know if any of us know exactly what that is. We might think we know what's causing our nutrient deficiencies or nutrient tie-ups, in simple, maybe more along the lines of what's stopping us from cycling nutrients as fast as we possibly can. And that's really what we're trying to get to, is cycling through the nutrients that are there, making what's in the ground, what's on the surface, especially, more available to plants. So we got to get this stuff to break down a little quicker. And not exactly certain which natural compounds we might be missing. So that's kind of what we're trying to do, I think, is experiment and see which ones of these things will trigger some additional nutrient availability. And I think that's kind of where what we're seeing with certain products, and not all of them are working, because sometimes we don't see anything, and sometimes we see some pretty unique, interesting results. We saw some the other day with some stuff that looked like it was, and we haven't looked at the map yet, but in general, on the field that we looked at, we had some products out there that were a natural based product that really seemed to trigger some yield results.
Well, and it seems interesting on our farm that we've been, at no-till for a long time now, more 10 years into cover crop as well. We've got the bugs there. The microbes are there, they're doing their thing, they're functioning. So some of these carbon-based products, it's food for the microbes. But Fred, I can kind of see it in two different trains of thought. One, for farms that are degraded, that are just starting their soil health journey, they need to get some carbon in there to jumpstart the system. You might need some actual living microbes as well. And you definitely need roots, because that's how you're going to actually build this long time. You've got to have plants and photosynthesis going on to make this long term. But I can see adding carbon where we have a lack of it, but then also supplementing and providing additional food for the system when you have the microbes, like what we're seeing now on our farm. Do you kind of see both of those, Fred, or how's you guys' approach and soil health message been?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the food you were talking about for the microbes is really a key. And that's really where these humate products, there's really something for everybody, right? It's those who are just starting out, it's those who are interested, and even those like yourselves. You've got some great environments established. You got great colonies out there. You got some diversity out there. We put some products like our product Zap that I know you've got on your soybeans right now, and that actually feeds those populations. But I think there's really two areas that we see as far as benefits, or actually two significant areas. One is that availability, right? So it's availability, whether it's a foliar spray delivering nutrients or whatever into the crops, as well as to the roots. So availability ties up and allows the roots to absorb more nutrients, and it makes everything more productive there, as well as in the leaves. However, there's also the speed aspect of it. And I think as we start going more into precision farming right now, right? You're starting to see with whole regen ag and CI and everything else, the need for spoon feeding. I know you guys do a great job of that on your farm. Farmers now want to apply just in time. You want to go at V6 and influence that corn plant, right? Because what's happening. It's starting to establish ear size. Well, these products that we have with Humics are able to deliver products into that plant within an hour. So believe it or not, you spray your crop within 1 hour, we're delivering those nutrients. I mean,
because it's more natural, right? So the plant just recognizes it as a carbon molecule. It's more natural for it. That's the whole premise, right? It's not a hard chemistry that could cause, antagonistic effect. You can deliver it in a little bit easier to, obviously the plants aren't chewing it, but easier to chew kind of manner, right?
Easier to digest. Let's put it that way. Yeah, definitely easier to digest. And like I said, that's the case. The roots, we've had situations. We just did a study in Western Kansas this past year, and we put some humate-based products down, and we did Haney scores, believe it or not, 5 days after we applied a product, and the Haney test we saw a 33% improvement in the corn treated by the humates versus the control. So the speed of delivery, the speed of absorption is just amazing what you can get out there. And I think that's one of the things, you guys talk soil health. You've been doing a fabulous job of it. You've been probably one of the top ambassadors in the country of it. But one of the things you hear from farmers, their reluctance to engage seems to be, well, it takes too long.
Yeah.
Right. And farming is I got to turn a profit now. And I got these pressures, and we all understand that. But I think one thing that these humate products can do, it can really accelerate your journey and get you there faster and start seeing benefits faster.
Well, and that's maybe an angle that we go here. We need to circle back to some of our trial and some of our observations here at some point. But let's go, because I want to hit on this carbon intensity thing. Carbon intensity is everyone on here, it's basically the carbon footprint per bushel. It's a huge deal for some of the tax credits that are happening. And for your 2024 crop, you're going to really want to know what your CI score is. Right before this, we were calculating, we just harvested my corn on my farm over the weekend and then recalculated my CI on my corn that we just harvested. And it looks like for the 2023 season, my crop will have a CI score of negative 4.1. So it's field by field. Here's what we are getting, from those scores. But what I'm getting at here is farmers, we need to know what our CI scores are. It's a huge, huge deal on your 2024 crop. And there's significant dollar opportunities associated with low carbon biofuel tax credits. The issue is not all farmers are going to be ready to jump straight to no-till and cover crops and stuff right away. And if you're getting this message late, you might not have the time to get on some of those soil health building methods, but you're still probably going to be managing your fertilizer next year. And a quick fix to reduce your carbon intensity is be more efficient with your fertilizer. Fred, maybe what are you seeing from that standpoint, from a nitrogen management standpoint, and how should farmers be approaching, whether it be humics or just any other efficiency products? How are you encouraging people to approach that?
Yeah. So when people hear CI scores or regen ag or any of these terms that you're hearing out there, they immediately think of cultural practices, right? And certainly that plays a huge role. But a lot of these products out there can be quick fixes. Now, they're not the only fix, so don't misunderstand me, but it can help you kind of get there faster. And what I love about no matter where you are in the journey, so if you're just starting out and you're like, well, my goodness, transition to no-till or putting on cover crops, it seems kind of daunting right now. Using humate type products can certainly get you there by dramatically lowering your fertilizer, involvement, but at the same time, keeping the yields, or in many cases, increasing the yields, right? So making the fertilizers, work better. I know I heard an Iowa farmer tell me not too long ago, I just want to get what I'm buying. I mean, it was pretty funny. I mean, he just kind of blurted it that way. I want to get what I'm buying. And so often, why do farmers over apply? Well, because they're trying to compensate. And I think this is a way to maybe, bring that down a little bit. But certainly it's an easy way to get in. But then again, for the veteran, for people like yourselves, the beauty of CI, which I love about it, is you can always get better, right? So if you're looking for that added advantage, no matter where you are in your journey for reducing CI scores, humate products, and products like ours can help you get there. I mean, farming's a lot like golf in a lot of ways, right? I mean, it gives you the same highs, it gives you the same lows, the same frustrations, and so forth. But in a lot of cases, you just want to get better, right? I mean, I can go out and golf with you and your dad, and I don't really necessarily care if I win. I just want to do one stroke better than I did last time, right? So farming is a lot of the same way. And so on this CI journey, that's definitely what we can help provide.
Now you're speaking Dad's language here. If you're bringing in farming and golf here together, Fred, we might be here for a while. But when I go golf with Dad, I know I'm not going to win. I know he's going to completely whoop me. I'm mostly just there to drink beer and hang out, but
that's okay too.
But Dad, I mean, what is your thought? I'm derailing us, but it's a good thought behind that. You've been seeing that on our farm, of course, of that continuous improvement. Maybe let's tee that up a little bit more too on kind of what the thought process has been we've tested dozens of different products and additives, biologicals, stabilizers, new fertilizer products. We're doing a lot this year with micronutrients and getting rid of fungicides and stuff. Talk a little bit about some of those incremental changes, I guess, from on the farm.
So, I mean, I want to revert back to what Fred was saying there. As we're trying to cut our fertilizer inputs, and I'll continue with this golf analogy. It's kind of like going to play 18 holes of golf and you don't have a 3 sleeves of golf balls. You've got 2 golf balls. And I want to go play that round with 2 golf balls. I got a chance to lose one, but I don't want to lose both of them. Otherwise, if I lose them both, I'm done. But it's like going to the field then with that. I want to go out there and on my fertilizer program, in order to lower my CI, I want to use 1 golf ball the entire round. I want to use 10% of what I probably used to have in the bag with me when I applied, when I went to the field with the whole 3 sleeves of golf balls. But use just 1, and I'm going to supplement with a humic or something else to trigger the release of all those nutrients, and that will also support the use of just that low rate of fertilizer. And I think that's kind of where we're at. And I was kind of going to lean on Fred with this a little bit because we have cut our fertilizer really, really hard. And as Mitchell had mentioned with his CI score on his farm, part of that is the way that we've reduced the phosphorus application. I'm applying below what the recommendations are calling for. We're only putting 50 pounds of MAP in the fall and ahead of the corn crop. And there's no phosphorus going on in front of a bean crop at this point. So that's all it's getting in a 2-year process. And so we're utilizing these biologicals to try to release more phosphorus at planting time, release more phosphorus, and whether it's coming through a company's products in what we're applying, or just stimulating more release throughout the year. And I kind of wanted to ask Fred, as we put these products on, is there need to utilize other nutrient sources along with the biologicals, like with some of your Huma products, or is there enough additional nutrients in there that we can get by applying minimal rates pre-plant and then stimulate the uptake of little bits throughout the year, lowering our overall fertilizer applications, and not just on P and K, but the other nutrients as well, and especially nitrogen, so that we can get those plants in season as they're growing, and when they really, really need nutrients, that they can take up little bits, and it makes a big difference.
Yeah, so great question. Clearly, every farm's different, right? And so soil tests, tissue samples, everything like that. So it's hard to really make blanket statements, but I will tell you that our humate products are great companion products. Right. We do make a lot of things better, right? So I mean, that's the way it works. We have a symbiotic effect with a lot of what we're seeing, whether it's the biologicals. So if you're wanting to add populations into the soil, we can make them populate faster. That's certainly a big key of what we do. But let me give you an example. I've got some test farms here in Tennessee that I grow crops on. And this past year, I've put a corn crop out there. And, we did fairly well. We had some major green snap issues. We had a 90-mile-an-hour wind that came through here and took out about 20% of the plants. That said, we still had a really strong yield, 231 bushel corn, and I used all Huma products, right? So in doing that, I'm probably most proud of a nitrogen use efficiency score of 0.57. Mm-hmm. Now, keep in mind, in the Mississippi Delta, as you probably know, Mitch, I mean, you're looking about 1.5 is what most people do. Yeah. So we're at about a third of that just using these kind of products. And I think it's the delivery system. I think it's the availability. It certainly has to do with stimulating what's already in the soil and the microbes. But in addition to the nitrogen story, I mean, I use 24 pounds of phosphorus and 19 pounds of potassium. So I mean, may not be where the Horas are right now on my test farm, but I'm trying to get there by using this. But I think that nitrogen use efficiency story, I mean, that is clearly going to be a massive advantage. We start talking about CI scores. I mean, that's going to drop those scores like a rock.
Yeah. I wanted to hit into some of that. I've been running some math over here, and I know Greg's got some good questions in the chat and stuff here too. And Greg, trying to track with you. We need to come back on the pH of the humic and stuff here, but been running a little bit of stuff on how we are approaching this from a budget and actual bottom line dollar standpoint here. Okay, so part of it ties into number one, be efficient. And again, back to how I started the webinar. Number one, we need to build soil health. We need to build resiliency. We need to be efficient and control what you can control and make the bottom dollar pay on its own. However, when we layer in carbon intensity, okay, so I'm running on my farm here because I have it pulled up already. We're running the GREET model and we're running that within our TopSoil tool, our software. For every 10 units of nitrogen that I cut, and here I'm playing with anhydrous. Okay, so cutting anhydrous by 10 units, it improves my CI score by about half a point. Okay, 0.5, that's it. A half a point reduction in my CI, growing 212 bushel corn, which is what I averaged this year in our poor drought that we had. So a half a point reduction on 212 bushel corn is worth about $5.72 per acre. So $5.72 per acre improvement in my total potential value of my CI score. Okay, 572 is not what I'm going to get paid. 572 is the total value of a half a point reduction from the 45Z tax credit. Half a point reduction, total value of $5.72 to split between the ethanol company, myself, and the data players that I've got at the table. So it's a couple bucks. Now, obviously, I'm saving some money on the cost of the fertilizer as well. So say maybe I'm saving $6, $7 an acre in the anhydrous, plus I'm making a couple extra bucks on the CI score. And maybe I'm getting some more efficiencies and maintaining the yield because I've got the Huma product in there. That's one approach. You can continue to reduce your fertilizer, but my point being here is the reduced fertilizer improves my CI, but it's not that much money. What I would rather see is, can I maintain the fertilizer that I am using at a very efficient level, which this year on my 212 bushel corn, we only had about 145 units of nitrogen out there. So I'm getting a nitrogen efficiency this year of about 0.67. So not what you're seeing, on your corn that you were just talking, Fred, but in the drought that we had this year, I'm tickled that we got 0.67. I'm just tickled that I didn't think the corn was going to make 200 bushel. And I was picking it on Saturday and seeing a lot of 240, we were seeing some 260, 270. I'm like, this is amazing, but it speaks to the resiliency that we've built in. My point being, we could reduce our fertilizer and see an improvement on our CI, which is great. However, I'd rather see, can I get the product added out there and can I get an extra 5 bushel of yield, sell those bushels for an extra $5. Now I'm improving my top line revenue by $25 an acre if I've got 5 bushels at $5, plus I've got more bushels with a good CI score associated to it, and I'm making those synthetic inputs go further because I'm still only applying the 145 units of nitrogen, but I can add a efficiency product. I can push and get better yield, plus hopefully get some better carbon or some soil health benefits too, like avoiding disease and additional plant stress issues to be able to be more resilient in a drought situation like we did. And I think where Dad was talking about that a little bit, we did not have the Huma stuff on my field. Again, we'll get to that trial here in just a second, but on my farm, we didn't have any fungicide on it. And we're playing around with different, a product called BioImprove. It's a biological and micronutrient type of product. Instead of doing the fungicide, which of course is going to avoid disease, but it's probably going to kill some of my good guys as well. Well, I'm trying to build up the good guys. So we're trying to utilize alternative products and utilize less fungicide to help with standability, yield, crop quality, and thus, again, of course, improve the overall CI. But kind of long story there, but my point being to the efficiencies and to some of the budget questions here, I'm looking at, can I continue to be super efficient with the fertilizer inputs that I'm doing, not apply more than what I need? Because we ran a whole bunch of nitrogen trials last year, and we showed that we really don't get a return by using much more than 145 units of nitrogen. Like, there's no need to be wasteful and put it on, but we've already cut significantly, 145 units to grow 212 to 250 bushel corn. That ain't a lot, but anyway.
So Mitchell, can I add in on your
rambling and explanation there? Yeah, Dad, thoughts there?
Yeah, I want to add in on. So when you calculated that CI, you were trying to figure the additional value by reducing 10 pounds of nitrogen.
Mm-hmm.
If you go the opposite way with it and say, if I add an extra 10 pounds of anhydrous, it's going to cost me, say it cost me $5 to add 10 pounds. I'm trying to pick up, say I'm trying to pick up 5 bushel of corn. I don't know if I can do that. Raising it 10 pounds, I don't think it's enough. I don't think that'll trigger that much. Maybe it'll get me 2. Let's use 2, for example. It'll get me 2 extra bushel of corn if I spend $5 an acre. The problem is the CI score that you figured, you make the caveat that we know we won't get that full $5, but if you raise and increase your nitrogen rate by 10 pounds, it will cost you the full $5.72 of value.
Yeah, guaranteed.
That complete value is gone. So
sure,
when you add that $5 expense in the 572, now all of a sudden you got a $10 expense for what you're hoping to pick up 2 bushel of corn. So there's definitely no gain.
You're saying in the opportunity cost, yeah, in the opportunity cost and in the actual cost of the fertilizer that we spent the money on up front.
Yeah. You add those two together, and all of a sudden it changes that picture, because it will cost you that full amount on your CI score.
Sure. Fred, thoughts on this? Just kind of wanted to pick your brain a little on are you tracking kind of here with how we're thinking about approaching throwing this carbon intensity score into this equation here, where, we want to be efficient, but also the math actually works better if you can get more bushels with that efficiency, not just to cut and maintain yield, but be efficient and grow your yield.
Yeah, so the CI score certainly, while it's exciting and certainly a new revenue stream, it's almost a bonus.
Yeah.
Right. So it might allow some farmers to take a look at things that they might not have in the past because it's a new revenue stream. But the reality of it is it's definitely a bonus. We've got to get there using tried and true practices. And one of the nice things about the products that I'm talking about is, in many cases, you have to make no changes to your management system, right? You can add a product like an Extend, at the risk of giving ourselves a commercial, and it's a carbon type product that makes other products better. So you can drop off nitrogen, cut your nitrogen rates, add this product in. You're certainly going to have a cost advantage of that. And then you're usually going to see at least similar, if not greater, yields from that as you tinker with those. So, we're not saying, we got some opportunities here to jump in exactly with what you're already doing, just making that system better and fine tuning it with some of these products. Because, farmers hate change, right? And no one wants to totally upset their whole enterprise system. We can help people get there gradually. Once again, the carrot could be the CI score, but it's what you get with that when you add it all together, like your dad was saying. Now we've got a full package because we're getting the bonus on top.
So, and maybe to Greg's question here too, because it is good. How do you see most farmers approaching these type of decisions? And where does a product like a humic fit in? Where are they looking at, okay, I'm only going to apply 145 units of nitrogen and that's kind of it? so I need to figure out what else to add, and the humic is a bonus, or it's my fertilizer budget is $150 and it's fertilizer, but humic and everything is just kind of thrown into that bucket. How do you approach, I guess, like where does it fit within their P&L, and how should they think about creating return on investment from buying, products like what Huma has?
So great question. And I'm seeing a lot of regional differences when it comes to this, right? So get the opportunity with Huma to travel across the country. Been out west to whereas you start seeing, different type of crops out there, potato crops, you certainly see wheat and in some cases, some tree fruits and everything else. But those farmers have a little bit different mentality. They do appear to be in more of the cost savings. They have more of the natural way about them, right? So I think our products lend themselves very, very easy to them. They're certainly driven by the CPGs out there, right? As far as what they want to do. So I think they're very much ahead of the curve as far as where their journey is right now and everything we're talking about. And, they're seeing the opportunity to save money. When I go to the Midwest, which certainly my roots and background, as I mentioned earlier, I hear farmers all the time say, I just want to make sure I get what I'm paying for. And this whole notion of, being able to absorb what you have out there, everyone knows they're over applying. Now, the Horas may not be because you guys have fine-tuned yourselves, but most farmers out there, they recognize this, right? So in many cases, they want to increase yields too. Right. I mean, if you take a look at where cash rent prices are, land values are, we got a whole conversation on that. But it becomes very competitive now to also increase your yields. So you've got to find ways to economically do that. And I think that's where our Humate products come in. I think the other thing is this whole movement of regen ag and soil health, and certainly you guys are helping drive that, thank goodness. But it's causing farmers to say, you know what, we got to do something different.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, what we've been doing isn't going to get us there. Right. So I think farmers these days are much more open-minded to these conversations than they were even 5 years ago. As we continue on this, as they see these success stories out there and they know that these type of products work, it's just a matter of having them work within their system. So yeah, whether you're a guy who's chasing yield, which a lot of them are, right? I think we work in that, but we also can work in those who are looking to reduce costs.
Yeah. And obviously we have been, chasing this for a while and playing with a lot of different stuff, because on our farm, we're not farming a big amount of land. We've got to be super efficient with what we do have. And that means that we've got to really dial in our cost of production if we're going to be competitive. So we've tested, like I said, dozens of different products over the last couple of years, get involved in all kinds of crazy stuff. I always joke, I got to make it tough on dad. I can't let him be bored out there and not have a gazillion different trials going on all the time and just farm everything the same. That'd be boring, So, but my approach has always been, looking for products that are going to create at least 3x ROI, so 3x ROI, and it's farmer math, so it's, if a bushel is worth, a lot of times there was a bushel is worth $3, or like now the farmer math I ran before, $5 a bushel, and I need 3x ROI. So if I'm going to spend $10, I need to make 30. So I've got to get at least 6 bushels out of this product at a minimum. And that's got to be consistent. And also the product has got to be easy and just fit into our program. And be an easy add-on and work consistently. And we farm a very diverse farm, soils from less than 1% organic matter to now over 6% organic matter. So it might not work the same in every single field, and we have to continue to dial in where are we going to get the returns. But seeing a lot of farmers that are, approaching that and stuff here as well. But a couple really great. Or Dad, any kind of thoughts on that, on how we're...
Yeah, I'll throw a couple comments in. I think one of the things, as we are working to reduce our overall nutrient applications, potassium, those three in particular, I don't know exactly where we can get to on our nitrogen You mentioned a little bit ago 0.67. We've obviously got ground that we can probably prove right now that we're at up close to 0.5. If some of the ground can do that, why can't all of it, first of all? So maybe that's the goal, is to get to a 0.5 pounds of N per bushel produced. As what we've done the last few years, we've tried to learn this. I think these other products, these humics, these biologicals and such, they're the things that we have to do to mitigate the stress, because I think we can easily make our farm under the right growing conditions. We can get by with that 0.5 and get maximum yield. We have to get the ranges perfect though, and that has not been the case in the last several years. We fight these times when, especially when it's dry, and we don't get the rain that we need to keep the nutrient cycling in the ground. This year was a great example of it, when we saw some sulfur deficiencies first, and then followed by potassium deficiencies. It got extremely dry. It was cool, and then it got real dry real fast. So to be able to supplement a product to make up that difference and feed that plant when it needs it real quick, like that's kind of where I see the really good fit for these products. And especially if you can put them on with other planned applications, it makes so much sense to be able to use those. And maybe we're not always going to, hopefully we can get ahead of some of these stresses sometimes and see that, oh, hey, here comes this, we got a dry spell ahead of us. I've got herbicides got to go on. I'm going to throw X product on to help release more potassium and make the potassium more available in the plants. So,
yeah.
And maybe I have to supplement a little bit with it, but use a product to help bring that potassium into that plant and reduce those stresses. Same thing with nitrogen, but I see that looks like a great fit to me, because as we continue to reduce the overall input of stuff, of the nutrients applied, that seems to be that's the fit.
Well, and we had always, done a lot of our P&K broadcast and across the whole field and spread it on top, but in a continuous no-till system, and where we're getting better efficiencies naturally out of the soil. We're not doing as much of those just broad scale broadcasting all the fertility up on top, where it probably is getting tied up and we're really not getting the efficiency out of it. So that lends even further to needing to spoon feed, index the nutrients right where they need to go, and apply them closer to right in time. So having better delivery is going to help with that. A couple really great questions in the chat here that I want to get to, because we're already getting close to the top of the hour. It's gone really fast. Hopefully it's been helpful for everybody. I know I've enjoyed it. I think it's Denise here. Speaking on some of these efficiencies, does the GREET model need revision to account for some of the nutrient use efficiencies, and how can that be done? And a really, really great question. So number one, the carbon intensity scoring that we've been talking about, it's scored with the GREET model that's from the U.S. Department of Energy, and with our software TopSoil, we've simplified that process so farmers can get their CI scores in under 10 minutes. And we're doing it on a field by field basis, which is what you're going to need to do to go through third-party verification and be able to actually monetize low CI grain in 2024, which I'm going to get to Jeff's question from the chat here as well. But the efficiencies themselves, okay, so my direct efficiency of having a nutrient use efficiency of 0.67 here this year on my corn, that does not directly plug into the GREET model and I get credit for it. What does plug in is the actual product that I'm applying and the actual units that I'm applying. So I got my score of negative 4.4 by saying I grew 212 bushel corn on average, and I utilized anhydrous at 135 units. I utilized MAP at 50 pounds to the acre. We utilized UAN as a starter and had a couple units of that. So it's not the actual percent nutrient use efficiency number, it's plugging in the actual nutrients themselves. So therefore, if I add in the humic product, it doesn't necessarily get plugged into the GREET model that I'm utilizing the humic product. I don't get actual credit for that carbon additive itself. Plus, it's fairly minimal, of course, amount that I'm actually applying. It would be minimal at most anyway. What does factor in is I utilized some diesel fuel to get that product on. Now, hopefully I tank mixed it, and therefore I was going to spend the diesel fuel anyway. And now it's no big deal, no additional real additive, but I can get some efficiencies because I utilize a product potentially in reducing my fertilizer, which I plugged in those nutrients, or in yield, like I said, which is really what we are mostly after: consistent yield, leveling out the yield across our fields, fixing those poor performing areas of the field so the whole field average can have a better CI score, so, or better yield. So I have a better CI score and more bushels that can be sold. I do think there's opportunity to work with the Argonne National Lab to improve the model. It needs a lot of help. It needs a lot of improvement, but it is good enough today that we need to get the IRS to solidify the 45Z tax credit rules, utilize the GREET model as it exists today, and then understand we can continue to do research and collaborate to improve the model in the future. And at that point, there might be opportunity to say, hey, we've got, compost or biological stuff or humics or alternative inputs that are a lower carbon footprint than the incumbent. So, but today, all we do is plug in those synthetic fertilizers that are being utilized. The efficiencies are what we work with producers on a one-to-one basis. Last kind of other piece on that, Jeff's got a great question here. How do we get the value from that CI score at the ethanol plant? Okay, so I was just running some of that math here a little bit ago as well. This 45Z tax credit doesn't even start until January 1st, 2025. We don't have the final rules yet. This is all still out there. It was signed into law with the Inflation Reduction Act last August, and that's why we're pushing on this. And we'll want to have this conversation with Fred because we're in the heat of the moment. We're still going to talk about our trial here just a little bit, but we're thinking about next year. As we're out harvesting our grains right now, hopefully you are doing a lot of trials and learning from the things that you did on your farm here this year. But the point here is to be thinking about this for the 2024 crop and any fertility that we're going to be putting out this fall. The value comes in that my low carbon intensity corn, which now I know has a CI score about negative 4.1. So negative 4.1 corn on 212 bushel the acre has a total tax credit top line value of $1.79 per bushel. And that $1.79 is, again, the total potential pie that can be shared amongst the biofuel manufacturer, in this case, an ethanol company, myself as the farmer, MRV players like Continuum Ag, we would utilize our TopSoil tool to get it third-party verified. But $1.79 in value with my data, real money here. And I think the farmer can get a decent cut of that. I'm starting to hear companies say that they're going to give the farmers 50% of that value. We're talking real dollars here. So on 212 bushel corn, this is a $380 per acre value that we could go tap into. The $1.79 times 212 bushel. So $380 an acre to understand these scores, put some numbers behind this, and be able to tell our low carbon story in the marketplace. But it takes data. All these claims, we've got to be able to back them up. And the value comes in that when I sell my loads of corn to the ethanol plant, they need the data. They need this data that shows this corn has a CI score of negative 4.1. Well, I know that score is worth about $1.79 per bushel. I'm not just going to give it to them, which is my number one concern, that a lot of farmers don't understand this. They're going to get hosed. I posted something on my Twitter here yesterday. There's a new pilot program going on in Kansas where they're paying farmers 15 cents a bushel for all this data for their carbon intensity. Just 15 cents, like flat. But that data could be worth $1.79. So farmers, what I'm getting at here is you need to know your CI, know the value of your CI, know the opportunity for the next player in the supply chain. And that data that we are collecting is extremely valuable, and we need to be equitably compensated for it. The ethanol plant needs my low CI grain because it lowers the carbon intensity of their fuel, and they need the data to go along with it so they can actually monetize. And that's really the opportunity here going forward is be efficient with these inputs, be smart. Be smart, number one, of course, in cost of production, control what you can control, and grow in a profitable manner. But document the things that you're doing because they can be extremely valuable as these markets come to fruition. Fred, I don't know what your cut of that's going to be. I didn't have any Huma on my field this year. It's on our other trial, so I guess you get none of it right now. But let's hit on our trial because I do want to wrap up with that. Okay, so in working with Fred and his team, we're like, hey, let's try this stuff. Okay, so everything that we talk about with Continuum Ag, we don't necessarily endorse product. We don't sell any products or nothing. The point of this was to be thinking differently here. Okay, there's a lot of different options for our farms, and we need to be thinking about this stuff. So we said, hey, let's get some of the product and let's try it out. But for our farm, we said, well, hey, let's put it on the relay crop. So the trial that we've got with Fred is on the relay crop. And Dad, you'll have to explain kind of what we did and maybe any thoughts. We don't have the results yet because those beans are 4.0 maturity soybeans, and it's going to be another 3-4 weeks before
2 weeks at least.
At least 2 weeks before we harvest them. They're starting to drop leaves.
Yeah, they're starting to drop leaves, but there's about a third of them that are still green. So
yeah,
they're still growing. So yeah, as we get the products, and we kind of got a late start with the process. So we applied products post planting, so post emerge actually even, and applied 3 different times, I believe. And so we're looking to see what's going to happen. Didn't really get any results, different yield results with the rye. The rye was a little thin in that area. And we went through an extreme dry period from May 8th through the 4th of July. We just really didn't have any rain at all in that particular field. And so we didn't really get much result as far as influencing what was going on with the rye. So, which is unfortunate. We'll see
because the rye only made what 20 some bushel the acre.
Yeah, the rye was only making about 20 bushel. It was pretty thin. And it didn't have any water to grow. Fortunately, where the beans are at, we've had some decent rain recently. We had a couple of rain, like say around the 4th of July. We had another one the second week of August, and then we had a couple of decent rains here in September. And those 4.0 beans, it took them forever to start growing because they look pretty pathetic when we cut the rye off of them. But boy, they look really, really good now. They really took off and grew. Much different than the early beans where we had them in relay rye. So I'm expecting some good results out of it. And we'll see, if we see some differences with the products and such that we put on. So maybe Fred, if you want to explain products and such, I'll let you do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we gave them some products to test out. We know they've got some great things going on below the soil. So we gave them our product ZAP, and that's basically going to feed a lot of these microbes that are already in there and accelerate the populations and make them more vital in the soil. So that was certainly something that we gave them to take a look at. We gave them our Extend product. This is a biostimulant type product that really features our microcarbon technology. And as I mentioned, it makes other products work even better. It's certainly those who use it in the trials that we have, certainly we see great results by itself, but it's really a fantastic delivery mechanism as well. So it's got a synergistic effect. And then we gave him some products called Vital and Breakout. And these are more hormonal. I mean, they can influence the hormones of the plant, which certainly something that we want to do for growers who are really intense managers of their crop. These are great tools. I know there's other companies out there that, say they impact, the hormones of plants, but I think our delivery mechanism that we talked about with our humate based delivery mechanism, certainly gets that manipulation in the plant faster, more efficiently. I've used it on my test farms here for the last few years, and I saw great results. I know Mitch asked me one of the questions early on was, why did I go to Huma? Well, 2 years ago, I used a variety of Huma products, and we had a severe drought here in the South or in the Tennessee area. And, I was able to see a fantastic yield for for what we got. And I attribute a lot of that to some of these stress relieving products that we have and what we can do with the microcarbon. So that's kind of the product toolbox that we gave the Horas this year. Certainly looking forward to seeing how they turn out, but glad you're working with them. I'm glad you guys are seeing some good looking crops right now. We've got some timely rains. That always helps.
Yeah, it helps. And like Dad was saying, things are turning out better than what we thought they might early on. It's definitely, attributed to just building up the resiliency in our system and then utilizing some of these tools that are getting us that little bit extra bump. So it will be fun to get into harvesting some of those beans, and we'll report back, I'm sure, with what we find out. We are at the hour. I want to be cautious of everyone's time. Just pointing to a couple of additional upcoming webinars that we've got going. Information about these on our website and stuff. Dr. Liz Haney, Fred, you mentioned her before. She's our next guest, actually, end of the month. Amy Scotches Cole is with Farm Journal Trust in Food. He's got some really interesting research there. Steve Vistad is with Dakota Bio. We'll be talking a lot about the nitrogen efficiencies and biological products there with that as well. Just all this stuff continuing to help you all think through your 2024 crop, your 2023 crop and data, figuring out how can we continue to build soil health, be smart with our farm practices, but capitalize on some of these events that are out there. So with that, Fred, really appreciate the time. And like I said, excited to see what we can find out with the products and stuff this year, and definitely know that makes a lot of sense. I think for our operation, that it's these type of tools are what can really get those next layers. We've already fixed some of the major issues, from a yield standpoint, and now it's on to the next thing, and that's, I think, where these tools and fine tuning can really get us those extra bumps. So with that, we'll let everyone go here. Thanks all, and we will see you next time.